You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
Welcome, everybody, to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. This is your host, Trevor Wade. I'm the Coonhound Program Manager here at UKC, and I'm joined by the Director of Hunting Ops, Alan Gingrich. What's going on, Alan?
Doing well, Trevor. How about you?
I'm good. Just a little bit earlier today, I found out that 18 years ago, pretty big day for you, huh?
It is. It's my anniversary today.
18 years here at UKC.
Yeah.
Man, the things that you've seen change here and that you've orchestrated to change here. A lot of houndsmen out there should be appreciative of all you've done for the sport. I'll just tell you that for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but no, I would have never thought I'd be here that long, but I think I mentioned it this morning. I thought maybe 10 years or so, but hey, it's been a good 18 years, that's for sure. It's been good. Doesn't seem that long, but it's been a while.
Flew by, huh?
It has flown by, yeah.
It's crazy how fast the years go by. It's crazy we're already planning for 2023 and stuff, but how's the hunting season going for you so far?
Oh, okay. I guess I've, we've talked about it several times on this podcast about, I try to go up north quite a bit, running the beagles or trying to run them as much as I can. And I did sneak up last Friday, day after Thanksgiving. I did sneak up and ran for just on Friday. And it was another good day up there. But yeah, usually by this time I've been up there 5, 6, 7 times, but not this year.
Yeah.
But I hope to get up there another time or two, though, before the snow gets too deep.
Yeah.
What about you? How's your little pup coming along?
Well, she's coming along. That's about it so far. She's not quite 8 months old yet. We I took her out hunting a few times when I first got her, and then gun season came in up here in Michigan. And when you hunt a lot of state land, it makes it hard to do that. So actually, last night was the first time I've been hunting, and I was also on vacation for 9 days. I went down to Tennessee and did the whole Thanksgiving, Christmas stuff with those folks down there. So last night was my first time hunting in 2 weeks, and it was a pretty good night. We treated a couple coons, and I harvested one out just to let her know what one was. She fooled around with a little bit, but we got a ways to go still yet. Yeah. But she's young.
Yeah. Speaking of your vacation last week, you went down to Tennessee, but you also got a chance to go to your old coon club there, and they had one of those pilot hunts, the 10-mile 300, I guess they call it, like a super slam.
Yeah. I went down there last Saturday night. I was down there for their super slam event, and man, it's just we don't get a lot of opportunities ourselves to go back to the local clubs and do that kind of stuff. Just we're always on the road at major events, and
doesn't it feel good to walk in though and just
so good.
A lot of times, if it's like me going back to the Whitley County Coon Hunters Club, there it seems like nothing has changed. Right. It doesn't seem like everything's still exactly where it was. Yeah. Seems like, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, a lot of really familiar faces. Got to catch up with a lot of people I hadn't seen in a while, and like you said, all the pictures and everything on the wall, going back and going through all the memories there, and it was just an awesome time.
Yeah,
everybody sitting around the wood stove and eating some potato soup, and it was just perfect. It was a good night. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, today's episode's a little bit different for us. Getting into the episode here, we've been on rules now for a couple months. It seems like we've been buried deep in rules, and we keep talking about we're going to go back to the basics and talk to some beginners in this podcast. And I think today we're actually going to get a chance to do that.
Yeah, well, good. I think it's a great topic, one we wanted to do for a while. So yeah, I read some of the notes you put together here for it, so it's all good. I haven't done a whole lot of homework here, but
well,
I'll try to add in a little bit where I can, I guess.
Yeah, I think the basic premise here is basically we have 4 questions to answer for people new in different facets of the sport. First, you're just now getting a hound and you're just now getting into hunting. The second question is you've been hunting, now you're interested in competing with hounds. The third question is you've been competing with your hounds, but now it's time to step up and possibly start judging at some events. And then the last one is you get elected as an official. We get a lot of phone calls about people who just got elected as an official at their coon club. What are the next steps there? What do you need to know? Some common mistakes, stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a lot of information. I think it'll be a lot of good information for people to soak in, and hopefully we give out some good pointers and tips.
Yeah, well, we're probably not the professionals here, so to speak. Hopefully we can have a little bit of advice, based on our own experiences and things. But yeah, good topics.
Yeah.
Good topics.
And we've heard podcasts similar to these before, and we're going to keep it basic here and give some basic information. But there's also a lot of information out there.
Yeah, well, we talk a whole lot about some of our most biggest, newest programs like the TOC. You know, there's a lot of they're exciting programs for us. You know, but they're for somebody new, they're like, you know, what is that? You know, so having this, doing this topic, this, kind of going back to the basics. You know, and the other thing I think we want to make very clear is while some of those that are new to the sport are very new, and those are the ones we're wanting to speak to today, basically, but we want them to know that, hey, we have a good platform for somebody to start.
Yep, absolutely.
You know, and we want them to come in, and we want to hopefully try to help them, give them some information on what to do. You know, when you and I first started, at least that's the way it was for me. We were kind of lucky on my part where we had a couple friends that kind of put us in touch with a couple guys that were members of a coon club, and that's kind of how it started for us. You know, but we were kind of lucky. But we realized there's a lot of people that don't really know where to go. You know, they see things on the internet, this and that. But hopefully, we'll give them some good advice today. And we have $200,000 hunts you can compete in, but we've also got that ground floor entry level club for you to go to, or event for you to go and participate in and learn.
Yeah. And people may not recognize or may not think about it, is you can't have that top floor if you don't have that bottom floor and that foundation. And that having that base down there, that the beginners add into the entry pool, registering their dogs, and there's no TOC. There's no world finals. There's none of that.
That's exactly right. We talk a lot about the big winners of big hunts and big events and this and that, but I can tell you one thing, those guys all had to start at ground zero somewhere.
Yep.
Sometime, somewhere.
Well, let's get right into the first topic here. The first question, we sometimes get calls on. People are just now got a hound, or they're looking to get into hounds. Maybe they saw something. They saw one of our YouTube live shows, and now they're interested in coon hunting. How can they get into coon hunting and into hounds in particular? And I guess the first thing we could talk about is just some things to consider when you're getting a hound.
Yeah.
You can basically find them just about anywhere these days.
You can, and if you don't have a hound, the first thing I would suggest before you just go out, just because you're interested, I would suggest first go out and find somebody to go hunting with. Make sure this is something that you want to do. It's there's a lot of responsibilities that go along with it. But first go out and hunt with somebody. And that would be the first step.
Right.
And it's, if you're like me, I like going out hunting with different dogs and different people and things like that, but it's not the same as having your own dog in the hunt.
I agree with that. I agree with
something about that, you know?
Unless you're stuck in a briar thicket, then you're glad you don't have a hound on the end of your leash then. Yeah. But no, I agree totally.
Hey, I remember when I was a kid, young, I could not wait to get my own first dog.
Yeah. My
dad had a couple of hounds. My grandfather had a couple of hounds, but it was nothing like that, like having your own first hound.
Absolutely. And like I was saying, you can just about find them anywhere these days. Probably the two best mediums that I see out there are obviously social media. People have dogs or pups for sale all over those pages.
Yep.
Online forums, probably not as popular as they once were, but there's still a lot of traffic on those pages. We still have on our UKC forums, we still have dogs posted daily of all the breeds that you can go there and look at. And then another good option, and how I got started, is just finding people in your area that hunt, go and look at their dogs, hunt with some different dogs, and then maybe you find a dog that way.
Yeah, and that's good advice there. Lean on folks, ask questions.
Yeah.
There's no dumb questions. There's ask questions, and I think you can find folks that are always willing to help somebody out that's interested in the sport or interested in hunting or hunting with hounds. Plenty of people around. If you just look around a little bit, ask around a little bit, and you'll find somebody that'll help mentor you. I think my brother and I were like a lot of folks are especially when you're young. And I think one of the biggest, if I had to do it over, some advice I would give is a lot of folks tend to want to start with a puppy.
Right. And
I think you and I would both agree, and a lot of folks would agree with experience, we'd say, no, that's not the best way, because they just don't all make it for one.
Right.
But I think you're always better served to get your first dog to be a dog that's well seasoned and trained, and even if it's an older dog.
Perfect.
You know, it really doesn't matter how old you are, you know, and especially for a young kid, get something that's 5, 6, 7 years old and go hunt with that dog for a while. And I think that would be one thing that I would suggest over a puppy.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody has the fairy tale. Maybe it's from books or maybe where the Red Front goes. You see him, he gets these pair of pups and raises them up. But oftentimes it doesn't work like that. What happens is you don't know anything about coon hunting, and you're going to ruin this pup, and it's going to sour the sport for you.
Yeah.
I know whenever I got my first good seasoned dog, she taught me more about coon hunting than anything else could.
Yeah.
It's like you said, I think she was 6 or 7 when I first got her. Maybe had slowed down a couple pegs, but was actually good for me. No, she wasn't blowing around. She wasn't making a ton of mistakes. She was a good seasoned coon dog, and I learned a lot about coon hunting from her.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the best advice for somebody new getting their first dog. What type of dog they should look for? I would suggest a seasoned, well-trained dog. Even if okay, you can go buy a puppy maybe for between $200 and $400 or $500 for a puppy, and now a well-seasoned dog, and just depends on where you go. Oftentimes, if you network a little bit or find some folks, some mentors around, somebody will help you find that dog. Maybe it's one that's already has a night champion title or is titled maybe, and the owner is doesn't really. You know, it's kind of an extra dog for them, and they see somebody's motivation that they really want. You'd be surprised. You might be able to pick up a well-seasoned dog for a decent price. And even if you have to spend a little bit more, I think it's going to be you're going to be much the wiser for it.
Right. And when you talk about buy-in dogs, another thing to keep in mind, another pointer I had here is make sure you're trying those dogs out, especially when you're just getting into it. I'm not saying that everybody that has a dog for sale is a liar, but there's people out there who will take advantage of you if you allow them to. And it's better to be safe and sorry. Go hunting with the dog, see what it is before you ever purchase that dog.
That's good advice. Really good advice. No matter what, you know, it's go hunt with the dog at night. And most guys that are serious about selling a dog or whatever, they have no trouble in showing you the dog. You know, if they shy away from that, it's probably a good reason for you to also shy away from even worrying about that dog. Go look for something else.
That's absolutely right. And then the next thing when you're just getting started is limit your expectations. I think social media has made it to where reality versus the stuff you see on social media isn't exactly, it doesn't match up really. You see a lot of stuff on social media and you don't know what the situation is. Don't look and see this 6-month-old pup on Facebook and think that if your 6-month-old pup isn't doing it, that you're doing something wrong. Right. Everybody has their own pace and everything, and don't get discouraged by what you see on social media. Just stay the course.
Yeah.
And like saying, just don't get frustrated. Everybody stays at their own pace. Me starting out, I did not have an easy time getting into coon hunting. First off, I made a lot of mistakes starting out, and finally. I was just about to get out of it when I finally had somebody like you said who had this older English female and got me into it, and it got me hooked into it. And a lot of people fizzle out by then. They've already gotten so frustrated with their situation with the dogs and seeing other people flourishing in the same area, and they just completely get out of it. So don't fall into that trap.
Yeah,
just stay positive.
No, I think that's good advice too. You know, for us when we first started, like I said, we started with a puppy. My brother and I did with an 8-week-old puppy. You know, and that was a lot of fun, and just lucky for us, the dog turned out half decent. But that is we got lucky, very lucky. You know, that might be a 1 in 5, 6, 7, 8. You know, and it depends on on the line, I guess, or the strain sometimes, you know, your odds, I guess. But, and then the other thing with training, you know, we didn't know a whole lot about training other than we learned, got some pointers from our grandfather, you know. And honestly, when we lived in northern Michigan and our grandfather lived in Indiana, so it's not like he was close by. And back in those days, you know, it wasn't that easy to get a hold of Grandpa anytime we wanted to talk to him or what have you.
Right.
But,
sure.
We did get lucky there, but I would still suggest get you a good trained dog that's seasoned for your first dog.
Sure. And talking about that, having a puppy, what often happens is being a new hunter, you just make a lot of training mistakes. And we're going to talk about some of the training mistakes that people make sometimes. And one of those things is they're just overexposing their dogs to things that can cause issues down the line. And the number one thing is caged coons. I think you see it all the time. People get so dependent on caged coons. And I was that kid back then when I was first starting out. I thought that was the only way to do it. And since learned as you work with it, you learn otherwise. But an overexposure to caged coons can cause a lot of issues down the road for your dog. Maybe a guy you're hunting with has an ill-tempered dog you don't even know about. It could be causing issues with your dog down the line. A dog with bad habits, maybe a dog that chews or hunts how you don't want to, blows out of the country, or mills around, or maybe a dog that jacks the tree or goes back to a tree. And this young dog that you're hunting with this dog just consistently, these bad habits are rubbing off on your young dog, whether you know it or not.
Hey, you bring up a good point here. It kind of takes my mind to, talking about trying new dogs, and we're talking about a seasoned dog, go hunt with the dog. And then second, maybe just because the dog trees a couple of coons or whatever and hunted it by itself, go talk to somebody that knows dogs, your mentor, whoever that might be, and ask them to go hunting with you. And maybe they take a dog and put him out there with another dog. Because just because a dog may look good by itself, maybe it has issue. You want to make sure it doesn't have issues with other dogs or hunting with other dogs and things like that. Because I can tell you, you want to hunt with your friends and this and that, and hunt with other people. But there's probably nothing that can sour friendships quicker is if you're hunting a dog that's ill with, that eats up or wants to gets ill with your buddy's dogs and things like that. So there's things like that you want to stay away from. But we call it checking the dog's oil, But and maybe maybe making sure. Take somebody else with you, an experienced hunter, to look at this dog, and maybe hunt it with a strange dog to see how it reacts to that.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I think the most common training mistake is getting that dog or pup and keeping it in the pen for months and hunting it once every couple of weeks and expecting it to turn out just because of its lineage and stuff like that. Nothing in that dog's blood is going to make up for keeping it in the woods, and hunting it regularly.
Yep.
I have another point here, and it can be kind of two different things that tie in together. And it just says a common training mistake is becoming frustrated or complacent. It's two totally different things, but they can both impact a young hunter's arc of how they're going into the sport, and then also a dog's development. So I think a big thing for me when I was starting out, I was working 12-hour days then, and sometimes it's hard when you get home to want to go hunting that night. But if you have some buddies around you that are hunting and you're already sitting on the couch and they shoot you a text, you want to go hunt tonight, that you're more apt to go hunting if somebody's kind of pushing you and your mentor or a friend that's pushing you and hunting with you kind of keep you not getting complacent, but making sure that you're going hunting regularly. I think it's a big thing. And also getting to local coon clubs is a great place for any hunter to start and find mentors and hunting buddies to hunt with. Yeah. There's a lot of them out there everywhere.
Yeah. And if hunting with hounds, and especially at night, if that's something you're not familiar with or have not done much at all, or maybe not at all, you're going to be surprised the things you learn, learn, and hear that happens at night out there that you wouldn't learn or know otherwise.
Absolutely.
And some pretty cool stuff sometimes.
Absolutely. And the last thing I can say as kind of a pointer for any new hunters that are just getting into hunting is just be open-minded and willing to learn.
Yep.
We've probably talked about that a lot, but don't get stuck in your ways on something you read. Always be open-minded to any information somebody's giving you, and whether it works out for you or not is to be seen, but always be open-minded and willing to try different things
we mentioned ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but probably maybe even more important to that is just listen. Yeah. Listen what guys are talking about, and different folks have different opinions on this and that, and that's all. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong, or one person's, right and the other one's wrong, but just that's how you learn things. Listen. Spend a lot of time listening. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about soaking up information and gathering information from firsthand experience, whether you're in the woods with your hound or you're hunting with other people and getting information that way. But I think now more than ever, all the information out there available to you, take advantage of that as well. There's a lot of material out there for new hunters, especially. There's tons of podcasts, there's YouTube channels. Of course, there's a few different hunt magazines, lots of good books out there. I know people don't read as much anymore, but there's a lot of good reading material out there that might be outdated, but still pretty pertinent now. Nothing's really changed in the sport of hunting that much.
Absolutely. You can get your hands on a lot of material, educational material for sure. And that's one thing that's totally different than when my brother and I were kids,
Right.
That's totally different,
Absolutely.
So in today's world, that's one thing that they have a huge advantage, and to get that material in front of them for
Yeah.
sure.
We have the Tree Dog Encyclopedia back here at Walk with Wick. That's actually mine. That I
Oh
think
yeah.
my dad
Yeah.
got that for me. Must have been 10 years ago or more now, and I bet I've read that thing 2 or 3
Yeah.
times, maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
times already.
We had those books too. Sure
So
did.
it's
Yeah.
invaluable information for
Yeah.
people. And the thing I have on here is when you're reading a book or reading articles or seeing people's social media posts or on discussion forums, you can sometimes save yourself a lot of trouble when you read about other people's trials and failures that they've went through,
Right.
and maybe
Right.
learn something to avoid or to do differently to avoid that in your future. So we've talked a little bit about your dog, but what else will you need besides a dog whenever it comes to coon hunting? The two things I know right off the bat that you're going to need, and all I had starting out with really was a light and a dog.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of hunting with just those two things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a whole lot of things you can, today's hunters have, especially the pros or the guys that have been hunting a while, they have a lot of little gadgets, and a lot of that stuff is all good, but you don't need a whole lot to get started.
Right.
And it's, you got to start somewhere, so yeah, a light is obviously, you got to have a light. But yeah, beyond that, just some dog necessity, some gear, some boots, obviously,
yeah.
and things like that, good, decent hunting boots, you'll be crossing creeks and water and things like that, and as you and I have learned a long time ago, it can get pretty miserable, especially early on in the night if you get wet feet, and especially if it's cold, so a good pair of boots, a good comfortable pair of boots is a good thing.
Just a spoiler alert for anybody getting into hunting. There's some boots that just don't go high enough for some of those creeks that you're going to get into.
Yeah. But as far as some of the other gadgets, like thermal imaging and all that kind of stuff, you don't need all that stuff
Right.
to get started. Not at all. Squaller, that's a good little thing to have. But, like we did when we were kids, we squalled with our mouths.
Yeah.
And a squaller is something what we do when we get to the tree, and you squall to try to get that raccoon to look at you, and so you can see the eyes, and just to get their attention, But so there's mechanical squallers, there's different kind of squallers that you can get. But there again, it's not something that you need. But to start out with, basically a decent pair of boots, and make sure your dog has what you need on your dog. The other thing before I would spend a lot of money on personal items like thermal imaging and big fancy dog boxes and things like that, would be a telemetry system for your dog.
I was going to say things have changed so much recently. It's almost a must-have to have some form of telemetry system on your dog with all the development of
Right.
roads and houses
Right.
these days. And hey, Daltra Pathfinder 2, you can get it for $400.
Yeah.
It's an affordable option.
Right.
Almost half of what a lot of these gadgets that we're talking about is.
And there again, if when you get to that point, if there another resource might be to ask your mentors. You might be surprised somebody might have a used system that they're looking to upgrade, and might have a used system that you can get at an affordable prices or affordable price as well. So just look around. You don't have to have everything new and the best and the latest.
Right. What'd you start out with?
Basically, what I just talked about: boots and a flashlight.
A flashlight. Yeah.
And that was about it.
Yeah.
We didn't have squallers. We didn't have the fancy dog. We made our dog boxes back then, and things like that, But
I remember,
no squallers, no anything like that. And today, still, my brother doesn't. He has a squaller or two, maybe, but he just uses his mouth.
Yeah.
I usually carry squallers anymore, but he's always just used his mouth, and he's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
He's very good at it, matter of fact.
I bet not many people are anymore. You don't have to have it anymore, but that was probably a really good thing back then.
Yeah.
I remember just me starting out, and it's been way more recent that I know Dad had a 12-inch mag light that I would carry. That was heavy and it get in the way of everything. And then, like you said, obviously a pair of boots, and then, like you said, a made dog box. It was made out of vinyl siding, actually.
Yeah.
Just on a wood frame.
Yep.
And that was it. I didn't have a telemetry system for the first 6 or 8 months, probably. And then I ended up getting a Bright Eyes light from the pawn shop. after maybe a year of hunting with that flashlight. Finally, I thought I was big time then. But those were still fun times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even then, obviously all the gadgets that we have now, I have a big, nice, fancy light. I got a vest that can hold all my stuff. I got a thermal. I got a good telemetry system that can tell me every road and creek and mountain in the woods. But I still had a ball back then hunting. It makes things simpler having all those gadgets, but man, you can have just as much fun out there on your own.
Yeah, probably the other thing, I don't know if you have any notes here on it or not, but the other thing I would suggest is, places to hunt. You probably have some state land you could hunt on, but property is something that you need to have to be able to hunt, on the right type of property that houses the game you're going after, But the other thing I would suggest is, make sure you have permission. Get permission from those landowners to hunt on their property.
Right.
And that can be in these days. That's probably one of the harder things.
That's
sometimes
the biggest limiting factor in hunting.
It really
anymore.
is.
Yep.
But you just got to push yourself just to go make that trip to the landowner's place and talk to them about it. And you might be surprised. Don't be discouraged. You're going to get turned down on some, but you're also going to pick up some nice places to hunt. And then the other thing is, on top of that, is always remember is to respect that landowner's property that you're hunting on. When you go through gates, close gates, never cut fences and things like that. You hear about some of those stories sometimes that's not something, that's their property. Leave it in better shape than when you got there. Don't leave trash laying around, things like that. Because if you're coming to me and wanting to hunt on my property and you're leaving ruts in my fields and things like that, always walk before you go through a farmer's soft field and things like that. And respect their land. But if I see fences tore up or gates left open, things like that, probably not going to be hunting on my property very long. So there's just a lot of little things like that to remember. We're going to take a short break here. We'll be right back.
Alan, we both had Dogtra Pathfinder 2s now for a little while. What do you think about yours?
I'm liking mine. One of the things, I had the opportunity to now download a map of an area where I did not have service, and I've used it there, and it has worked flawlessly. I love it.
Yeah, I love the crystal clear maps. I love that I never lose reception on my dog's collars anymore. Highly recommended by me as well. Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar partner of UKC. Well, now this he's been hunting for a while now, and he's interested in competing. This is the one that we probably get the most calls of, is they're taking the jump from just pleasure hunting, and now they're interested in competing in the sport, in the competition side of the sport. So how do they achieve this? And I think that we both agree that the first step is that you have to become acquainted with the competition side of the sport before you jump feet first in, trying to compete. And I think the best way to do that is just to find some local clubs in your area. That's usually what we would do whenever they call in. I'll get on the events calendar. We'll look at some of the events going on in their state and find them a place to go. And hopefully, usually we'll know somebody at that club to kind of tell them, go up, introduce yourself, tell them that we sent you. Make a relationship there, and they can help you kind of get started in that side of the sport.
Yeah, and it doesn't. You don't have to just go to the club. Find something somebody that that does competition hunt. And start talking to them. And go to their clubs, go to their club meetings. Start getting your feet wet a little bit and see what that's all about. We talked about having social media where you can learn a lot, this and that. And you'll also hear some things that are not so good. People complaining about this or that, and that hunters are, the competitions are just people cheat and this and that, But I think you and I can both attest to this, through experience that, sure, there might be a few bad apples, just like it is in anything. But I'm telling you, for the most part, the majority of hunters, even the ones that compete, are good, honest people. And a lot of times some of those stories you hear and read about, if you really knew all the facts behind it, it's just what one person's opinion is, or just talking bad about something. There might be, for whatever reason, but oftentimes it's not as bad as some people make it out to be.
Oh, for sure.
And oftentimes it's they don't know the rules as well as as they should.
Absolutely. That's a big driving factor of that
Yeah.
for sure.
And I'm sure we'll talk about that here a little bit, how important that is to, how it helps people to know and learn the rules.
Absolutely. Yeah. And talking about getting out to the clubs and events, our events are set up where it's really easy for the beginner to come out, and you can go watch the show. You can watch the water race or field trial if they're having those events. And also, every hunter's allowed to have 2 spectators go to the woods with them. And there's always going to be some open slots for you to get out there and see some hunts in action. You should definitely get out there and watch some hunts and kind of listen to some of the things that they're doing, and seeing the dogs and how the handlers are presenting themselves, and get out there and get entrenched in that before you ever try to do it on your own.
Absolutely, 100%. That's if you just go out there and haven't had much, you have never walked along with a cast, you're gonna feel like you're in a like a fish out of water, probably. So yeah, go, and there'll be guys that'll gladly let you go along and spectate, be a spectator, and go watch several casts before you jump in with your own dog. Just kind of learn the ropes a little bit, and see what happens out there. And I can tell you, it's an exciting thing, for as a handler. There's just something about it's if you like sports, or in school, high school, if you like sports and things like that, the competition. This is also a competition. There's just something exciting about it, even though it's with dogs on a total different platform than, say, playing baseball. It's still very exciting. There's competition there, and it's one thing that's different is you and your dog are kind of a team. You're going to call your dog for what it does, and that's your job to do that, and it's you hope there's a lot of anticipation there. You hope your dog performs the way you want him to.
Right.
When you're in competition, that doesn't always happen, but it adds an element of excitement that you don't get in some other sports, for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Because I'm not depending on you. It's not you and I working together. It's me and an animal.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of variables that go in when you introduce an animal and a dog, for sure.
Yeah.
One good thing about our clubs also is a lot of them have extra materials sitting around always, and we have rule books at all our events. You can come get them, but a scorecard is almost just as good when you're first starting out, because on the back of every scorecard is our running rules, and you can get acquainted with the rules that way. And a lot of the clubs will have them there available. We always send plenty for the event. They always have some extra. So just when you go, grab you a scorecard and start just reading that back. That's very important.
Start with the basics. You don't need to know all the rules, in the first week or first month or first year. It's, you and I have been doing it for a long time, and you're going to be learning for a long time, and the longer you do it, you're going to be better versed on the rules, and don't be overwhelmed by them or discouraged that you don't know them. It's one thing to read the rules, and then number 2 is to go out and apply them. You're going to come up with different unique situations, and learn what rule applies to the situation you have, learn how to recognize the situation you have.
Absolutely.
And then what a rule applies to it, and it's going to take time.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. Don't shoot to be an expert. Just shoot to be familiar with the rules. Yep. And if something were to happen while you're in the woods, maybe have an idea of where to look at on that scorecard, what section to look in to get your answer, because they're going to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we talk about a lot, and we send out a lot of scorecards to just a handful of scorecards to people here and there that are interested in getting into hunting, because they can have practice hunts with their friends or buddies or whoever, and kind of put the rules to the test out there in the woods.
And there's another one, before you go to your first night hunt, go have a practice hunt with a couple buddies. Even if it's just one other person, that's a good way to start. Just heads up, with one other buddy, and then maybe another cast with a couple, 3 or 4 dogs in it, and take scorecards. And like you mentioned, if you need to, UKC is always going to be happy to mail you a couple scorecards that you can use for practice purposes with your buddies for that stuff.
And speaking of, it's actually on our website as well. You can just print one as well if you have that capability. And don't have to wait on us to mail it. You can do that. I've actually done that before I started working.
For sure. And that's a good way to learn. Get your feet wet. Do some practice stuff with your buddies first. And a lot of clubs, I would suggest also to become a member of your local club in your area. And a lot of clubs have, not all of them, but a lot of them have what they call club events, where they're non-licensed event, just club buddy hunts, where they might have a hound of the year or something like that, just for their members, and that's a good way to get started as well.
Yeah, there's some things that you can learn by doing that. One thing for sure is running times, because whenever you're pleasure hunting, you don't really recognize the time that you're using. You're not thinking about striking a dog within the minute, or the minute rule, the minute grace period. You're not thinking about 3 minutes tree time. You're not thinking about, does my dog open every 6 minutes on trail?
Yeah.
You're not thinking about an hour hunt, really. I mean, if you're not keeping time, you're just out there enjoying yourself, and running time is one of the main things, and getting familiar with running time and keeping those things. And then, like you said, is the hardest thing for, I think, a lot of people, is applying the rule book to situations you see in the woods. You may know what the tree in but not declared tree rule is when you're reading it in the book, but when you get there and there's a dog there, you're thinking, what the heck do I do with this dude?
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes flipping over the card and kind of just putting it to the test and becoming familiar with that.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would add to that is, you see, maybe you might see some more experienced guys or handlers out there with a dog that you feel is maybe not as good as your dog, but maybe they're winning more with your dog. They're beating you. And oftentimes a lot of that has to do with inexperience.
Right.
And often by the inexperience, I mean, is I remember when I first started, it was hard for me to keep myself calm down and not overcall my dog, so to speak. You got to call your dog struck when it opens up, or call it treed when it trees. And the thing is, you want to try to be the first dog to be treed or whatever. Get that first tree, this and that. But you want to make sure you know your dog, and the difference between me as the inexperienced handler and you as the experienced handler. You're probably not going to jump the gun as quickly as what I am. Because if you jump the gun and tree your dog when it's not treed, you got minus points coming. It's those type of things that are so much harder to overcome. And that's the reason the more experienced guy is not doing those things. And he's going to get more wins than you are, maybe even sometimes with a lesser dog. But he knows that, that's a hard thing to overcome sometimes. You have a lot of dogs that are, some good hounds out there that you're going to be competing against. And if you're, and that's where doing your homework during the week, get to know your dog. We're talking about using telemetry systems, and you and I see it all the time, guys, and especially young guys, always looking at their telemetry. The one difference I think between the old days before we had telemetry systems and now is you can look at that thing. And when you're looking at that all the time, sometimes your ears are not in tune with your dog, what your dog's opening out there in the dark, and you're watching your screen. If you put that screen away, you would be surprised how much more focus your ears how much more you're going to intake or take in, what your dog, and learn every bark your dog's making, if it's a tougher track, and just learn your dog's characteristics and things like that. That is going to help you as a handler.
That's
know when to, hey, back off here. Don't get too jumpy here, and the odds of, those minus points. I remember when I started, I couldn't help myself. I knew what I was doing wrong, getting too jumpy, and I'd tell myself, I can't do that. And next thing you know, you get excited, you get into that next hunt, and by golly, I've done it again.
Yeah.
Here I'm 125 in the hole already, and we've barely got started.
Yeah. You see a lot of talk about high level handlers and how they, I think the conception is that a lot of them, they construe the rules to fit their situations, and they take advantage of the rules. And honestly, I think that the bigger thing that you see from a good handler that's consistently winning is that they're not making the mistakes on the rules that maybe some more novices is. So I think that's a good point.
I think that's a big part of the pros aren't making those mistakes.
Absolutely. You limit mistakes, and you're in a good spot to win the coon hunt the way the rules are set up, for sure. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about hunting, but we don't want to leave any of the show stuff out as well. And for anybody who's interested in start competing in the shows as well, obviously you're going to go to the club, maybe see some different shows and learn the subtleties of a show, learn how the shows work. I think it's important. Learn the flow of the show, figure out what breeds are going in the rings at what time, when you need to be ringside with your dog, learn about gating, learn about how to figure out the pace of your dog to get the most out of its gait,
exactly,
and get its movement on the ground.
A lot of things like that. You mentioned, there is a sequence and a procedure for the breeds that are, that get called in first and this and that, learn those. That's not a hard thing to learn. All that stuff, the procedures and everything are noted in the rule book.
Yep.
And it's not that hard to learn. But if you do that, pay attention as a handler, one rule is that it's the handler's responsibility that their dog is entered and shown in the correct class. So if you don't, if you miss your class, and even if it was inadvertent or a mistake or whatever, your class is already shown and you didn't get your dog in it, then you've missed out on that. They can't go back and redo that class or anything like that. So pay attention, and kind of know what the procedure is, learn what the procedure is. And there again, just like night hunts, go watch some shows, take your rule book, ask questions, this and that. So all good stuff.
Yeah. I think a mistake that a lot of new handlers may make when it comes to the shows is they have the gait down. They have the movement on the ground. They have the show. They can put their dog up there, put it in the right position, and stand like a statue.
Yeah.
But then when you put in the other factors that they're not thinking about whenever they're training their dog, like maybe there's a crowd there that day, a different service. They're not on grass. Maybe they're on concrete at this one.
Yep.
Being around different people, strange people touching your dog. And then there's other dogs, strange dogs. Maybe one's a little growly over here. Maybe one's barking over at the tailgate. There's a lot of different factors in there that you have to acclimate your dog to before you can put in a show and for it to excel at his potential.
That's a great point. And I remember, I'll tell you just really quickly, when I had I don't know when it was, I had a young dog soon after I first started. In the first 5 years I was competing, but I used to show some dogs as well. And I had one that was a pretty good looking hound, and I got him qualified for the world. And I didn't have any, wasn't going to go, but I had a buddy of mine who was a much better handler than I was at the time. And he said, "Hey, I'll show the dog in the world show if you let me come over and practice the dog a little bit." Well, he brings his young kid that was like 5 or 6 years old, and he wanted me to stay in the house and not be around my dog when he's out there practicing the dog, working with the dog. So I'm looking out there, and he's got his little kid, crawling all over the bench, and the dog's just moving around, not holding still for him. Yeah. And I'm thinking, dude, come on, man! If you get your little girl away from him, she's distracting him. Right. Well, that's exactly what he wanted.
Right.
To distract the dog and the dog, work with the dog during these distractions. So there's a lot of things like that. And there again, the handlers, the experienced handlers in the shows, they've learned a lot of things. And you brought up a good point, getting them acclimated to different things. Your dog might show well. You might have a bench at home and sets up very nicely around the kennel, and it's an environment that it's used to. But go take it to a strange place. You mentioned different surfaces, cement over grass, over gravel, and maybe some surfaces smooth cement can be a little slick, sure. Or it might have something that's just odd for the dog, But dogs need to be introduced to those different atmospheres and different. And that's what the experienced handlers are going to have all their dogs put through all that stuff before they're ready to win, And distractions is another one. Yeah. Sounds, a lot of dogs aren't, sometimes you go to a big show like Autumn Oaks, you go in there and some of these younger dogs, especially not used to it, is a PA system, things like that, just things that aren't natural for them or that are new to them. It's a lot of things like that. It's always good to expose dogs. Speaking of, I'm probably going way out of line here.
You're fine.
And I apologize if I am, but, there's, that's why you're going to see some of the experienced handlers bringing dogs to big shows like Autumn Oaks that they are not even showing. But guess what? They're in training. Yep. They're getting them used to a lot of other strange dogs around the area. Maybe take them inside the buildings, and the different sounds and smells and all that's different. Just getting them used to different things and acclimated. Yeah, it's a training process.
I think if that's the first time if the day you enter the show is the first time your dog sees those things, you're not going to do very well. Same as if the first time you enter a dog in the hunt is the first time it's seen other dogs and handlers and that sort of thing in the woods. It's not a recipe for success.
And as far as learning mentoring, there's a lot of good folks, a lot of good experienced handlers out there that are always more than willing to give you good little pointers and help you learn how to show dogs properly.
One thing I'm loving seeing at both the local event level and some of the more major events is that we're even at a just a standard show where there's a lot of adults there. We're seeing more maybe lessons and seminars out there. I know we've heard of a couple clubs recently that are playing maybe this podcast or a rules video where we're talking about rule interpretations at the club before an event while they're waiting on the deadline to get there for people to kind of become more familiar with some interpretations. That's a great idea by those clubs.
Absolutely. You know, and as far as like the leaning on experience, you know, there's just a lot of people that you can go to learn from. Ask questions.
Yeah. And then seminars. We've seen some really good bench show seminars. Youth Nationals is one where I always enjoy going there. The first year I was there, Jana Emery was the bench show judge. She put on an excellent seminar. This past year, Tiffany Schmerschel she was in Ohio, and she put on a great one. Every kid in attendance was so attentive, and she had a lot of good stuff. And I think that's a great way. And there was adults in there, and I was learning some stuff. You know, everybody has a chance to soak it in. So if you have that opportunity, take your kid to Youth Nationals and sit through one of those seminars.
Absolutely. You know, we're talking about, I don't know, we want to be very clear here. We have older guys that have older folks, men, women that would like to get into it. It doesn't matter if you're young, older, or what have you, you know, come on.
Yeah.
You know, you got to start somewhere. And I don't care if you're 40, 50 years old already and never done it, interested in try it, come on. You know, this all applies to you. And if you're a younger person, below, you know, we have our youth events that are 18 or 17 and under.
Right.
That's a good way to, you know, to get your feet wet. We have the YEP events where it's just youth only that you're competing against in night hunts. You know, if that's not as you know, especially for a younger kid to go up and handle against experienced adults, that can be a little intimidating for a lot of kids.
Sure it can.
And rightfully so. But hey, no, there's a lot of youth only events. We have, I think, over 200 a year. If you really look at the calendar, look for youth events. If you're a young person, there's those events out there for you. If that's what you're looking for, why, go to them.
Yeah.
Go compete with other kids. That's kind of your age and skill level.
Yeah. So now we've talked a lot about gathering information, getting adjusted to the rules. Once you feel like you've done that, once you feel like you've got your dog down, you know all about your dog's subtleties, you've put it in different situations where you feel like it's been tested. Now you're familiar with the rule set, whether you be showing or hunting or whatever. They all have their own set of rules. Be familiar with them. Then maybe time to go ahead and jump in and enter an event.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Absolutely, for sure.
I think the important thing for any newbie, and like you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think it's important that we mention it again here, is when you're first going in and entering, don't let negative feedback on social media or different platforms put you in a negative attitude going into the event where you think, man, it's my first time here. I'm definitely going to get cheated. These guys are out for blood at these events. No, it's not really like that. You go out there, you go in with a positive attitude, and more than likely you're going to have a really positive experience.
Good point.
And I think it's oftentimes if you go in with a negative attitude, you're going to get a negative outcome. You go in with a positive attitude, you're going to come out with a positive attitude. Just whatever you put into it's what you're going to get out.
That's exactly right. Sure.
And the important thing, and we've talked about it a couple of times already, is that we're all beginners at one point. You talk about you were a beginner at one point, your first time entering a hunt, your first time judging different things.
Made some big mistakes that I'm not going to make today, you know. But that's how you learn.
Yeah. Entering those events and practicing around is how you're going to work towards perfecting your craft.
Yeah. So, and the other thing I would suggest, you know, with rules, you know, with these competition also comes rules, and don't expect to get for anybody to make provisions because of your inexperience. You know, rules are rules, and it is a competition. Everybody's paying their entry fee, and they should get their due diligence. You know,
sure.
and so don't expect somebody to bend the rules for you or anything like that. You know, take what you got rightfully coming, and don't take what you don't. Hey, Trevor, how about those wait times in the registration queue these days?
That department done an awesome job cutting down on call queue wait times, shortening the length of time between emails, and the chat feature is still a short, valuable option.
And those times have went down to nothing. These days, there is hardly any wait time at all.
Right. And you're able to get a hold of those departments from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time now, Monday through Friday. Well, I think we had some pretty good discussions today for anybody new to the sport, wanting to get into the sport, whether it be just getting into hunting or just now starting to compete in hunting. I know we had we have obviously a lot more information that we're going to go over for new people in different roles in the sport. And I think that's going to end it here for part 1. We don't want to make this one too long, and probably going to come back with a part 2 where we talk about making the jump from competing to judging, and then ultimately maybe roles in a coon club or association or something like that.
When we started the show, you mentioned, we want to cover about 4 different topics. And I think so far we've been a little long-winded, and that's probably on me a little bit there, but seems like we've got about halfway through. So I think making this a second segment here is going to be good, I think.
Yeah, and I think this one kind of these 2 that we talked about tie in really well together.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a lot of good information. But one thing I want to make sure to stress to anybody listening is that if you have questions about this, don't be scared or intimidated to reach out to us. You can always get a hold of our hunting ops department. You can reach us by phone. Obviously, our phone number's on our website. It's 269-343-9020. Make sure you're going to the hunting ops department. We're always available for calls, unless we're on the road or something, and then we can always get back to you at our earliest time we can.
Yeah, and you and I have learned we've got to know a lot of folks, in our jobs and just out hunting and things, to do with dogs. And we can probably, there's probably very few places around the country that we can't hook somebody up with a mentor, somebody that they can hook up with to go hunting or to talk to, and that'd be more than willing to talk to somebody that's interested in starting.
Absolutely.
If we can help somebody like that, why don't hesitate to call us or email us or something for sure.
That's right. You can reach us by email at huntingops@ukcdogs.com. That's kind of our hunting ops email, and we can get it to different people. It may come directly to you and I, and we can help you out best we can to get you in contact with somebody who may be able to help you. And then also there's a new chat feature for anybody who's maybe a younger person on their phone. Just go to ukcdogs.com there in the bottom right corner, hit that chat feature, and we'll always help you out the best we can. Yeah,
and that's, hunting with dogs is you and I both know that's it's addicting. At least for me it was. It's a sport. It's not just a sport. It's also just fun to just go pleasure hunting with your dog and this and that. But competing with them just adds another element, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's good fun. You meet a lot of great people over the years too.
Thanks for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and to like and follow UKC Hunting Ops on Facebook and Instagram.